All right, welcome back to the Elias Macko Show. Now, more and more groups are calling on Prime Minister Mark Carney and his government to cut spending. This after the Parliamentary Budget Office released some dire numbers about the deficit and what will be added to the debt over the next 4 years. In case you missed it, this is from last week. Let's play you some audio here. You're going to hear the voice of interim Parliamentary Budget Officer Jason Jacques. He was speaking to committee last week and he shared this dire statement.
It should be very alarming. Right? These are, I don't know, I think I use the words in French, and which the translators probably got really well, like stupefying, shocking, right? This is not, like, it's not a funny fiscal outlook. It's a really serious fiscal outlook. And we don't lightly use the word unsustainable, right? Unsustainable means you don't have the option of saying, maybe I'll wait a couple of years, I'll see how things go. It means if you don't change, this is done.
This is done. Stark words there. Let's go to Franco Terrazzano, Federal Director of the Canadian Tax Federation. Franco, welcome back to the show.
Hey, my pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
Is Jason Jacques your new hero?
Well, those words are something that, really strike you when you consider the fact that, that's not an official opposition politician, right? That's not the Canadian Taxpayers Federation there at committee. That's the government's own independent budget watchdog using words like unsustainable, saying something is going to break. Everybody should be concerned. I'm really, really worried about what's going on with the state of our finances, right? There's a lot of different numbers we can point at. I'm just going to pick one right now. And that's the $55 billion a year interest charges on the debt, right? So right now, interest charges are costing each and every Canadian $1,300 this year, right? And that's not money that's paying down the debt. That's not money going to improve services or lowering taxes. That's $1,300 taken from each and every Canadian to pay interest on the government credit card. So look, the CTF, we've been sounding the alarm for a long time. But I think the words from the PBO, the Parliamentary Budget Officer, they better be ringing the alarm bells in the Prime Minister's office right now.
So I wonder if you are seeing any maybe positive signs. I keep going back and forth on this one. The hammer dropped on Canada Post last week, right? And obviously that's been a drain financially. There have been murmurs that significant cuts are coming in certain federal departments, right? I think there was a big hullabaloo a little while back, a few weeks back, that we covered on this show, that certain ministries will see a cut of like 85%, okay? But at the same time, when I listen to François-Philippe Champagne, there's a lot of talk, well, we're not going to spend, we'll just invest. And then I go, oh, maybe they don't get it. Do you think this government gets it or not?
Oh, that's a great question. And Elias, I think I'm kind of going back and forth like you are, right? You hear some media reports of a spending review where there's going to be, up to 15% savings in some departments. You do hear some of this, but then on the other side of things, right, every time you get a new report from the government, it shows spending is going up, debt is going up, right? So I don't know what to make of it. I think what's the one thing that we got to look to is going to be the November budget, right? What is in the November budget? Because all of the concrete stuff that we've seen, all of the actual facts and figures presented by the government shows that they're not really taking the problem seriously. I'll throw another number out there here, right? If you look over the next 4 years, Carney is adding about $255 billion to the debt because of borrowing every single year. Well, over those same years, Trudeau was planning to borrow about $131 billion. So Carney sold Canadians on this idea that he was different than his predecessor. But when it comes to the debt, at least so far, he's not only different than former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, he plans to borrow even more money.
Is there anything to, this is different spending. We are investing. We are not spending. Do you buy that?
Well, I don't buy it for a couple reasons. So, number one, we've been very critical, the Canadian Taxpayers Federation, we've been very critical of the Trudeau years and the spending deficits and budget. But the problem with the former Prime Minister's budget was not how they outlined the spending, right? That wasn't the problem. The government of Canada has these clear financial ways of presenting both its operating and its capital spending in each budget. So that wasn't the problem. The problem was the continuous borrowing, spending, and debt, which brings me to the second point. Given the point that we are here in Canada, where we're now at the cliff, we haven't jumped off, there's still time to improve things, but we're at the cliff because of the massive debt problem in Ottawa. So regardless of how the government paints its spending, if the debt continues to go up, we're in a big-time problem. And let me just add one other thing. It's not political ideology, per se, that will result in massive spending cuts, right? Like, just ask the NDP out there in Saskatchewan back in the 90s, what is the number one thing that will result in less healthcare spending and hospitals being closed down? And they will tell you it's the interest charges on the debt.
And now we're up to over $1 billion a week in
more than $1 billion
charges.
A week. Think about that, right? More than $1 billion a week in interest charges. That's a brand new hospital that is not getting built every single week because that money is being used to pay interest on the debt. And within a handful of years, we're looking at interest charges blowing an $80 billion hole in the budget. It's astronomical.
With Franco Terrazzano from the Canadian Taxpayers Federation. So, Franco, what I'm struggling with is so much of our economy now relies on government spending and government jobs. It's sort of been a story of the last few years. When you look at the jobs numbers, it's the public sector hiring people that has sort of kept things afloat. I wonder how you can pull back on spending without having a significant impact on the economy. Do you have any ideas, thoughts, or solutions on that front?
Well, let me just add, the higher number of government bureaucrats definitely makes those jobs report look better than what the actual state of the economy is, right? Where the government added 100,000 extra employees in the last 10 years, ballooned the cost of the bureaucracy to taxpayers 77% since 2016. Look, Mr. Carney is in a difficult situation. His predecessor left him a huge fiscal mess to clean up, but he has to do it. And he has to start by just being honest with Canadians about the grave situation that we're in. That is the number one thing that has to happen, where the Prime Minister has to tell Canadians, look, we are in a serious hole. We have to climb out of this hole. The last thing that we can do is just keep digging and digging and digging. So I think the Prime Minister has to be honest with Canadians about the serious and problematic state of our government finances here in Canada.
Franco, got to leave it there. Thanks for coming on today.
Hey, thank you.
Franco Terrazzano from the Canadian Taxpayers Federation. He's the federal director of the organization. When we return on the Elias Macko Show, we'll take a look at perhaps one solution to Trump's tariff war. We'll speak to a professor at McGill University who says it's indigenous free trade. That's next.
I'm Dylan Playfair.
And I'm Tyler Smith.
We're putting loneliness in the penalty box by talking to some of our favorite athletes about the importance of friendship.
This is Bromance.
Bromance is brought to you by Charm Diamond Centers, proudly Canadian-owned and operated. Charm has been part of your love stories and bromances for over 50 years. And you can find Bromance on the iHeartRadio network or wherever you get your podcasts.